After months of Oklahoma County commissioners, former commissioners, and building suppliers agreeing to plead guilty to corruption charges, today those same people appeared in federal court to be formally charged before a judge. About 5 people a day will go before a federal judge and formally plead guilty to either paying or accepting illegal kickbacks. Just as fast as the paperwork can be completed, those who sign guilty pleas will have their day in court. Federal prosecutors expect the court process to take a while since so many people are involved.
We've gotten approval now on 48 commissioners, and we'll then have another set sometime thereafter. I think our figures now at a total of 130, between 130 and 135 have entered agreements. So we'll be doing this over the next 6 months, I would anticipate.
Normally, formal sentencing takes about 30 days, but in the case of those cooperating with the government, sentencing could take as long as 90 days. As for how tough the punishment will be, that will be left up to the individual judges. Ed Stewart, Action for the Federal Courthouse.
The Charlene Fletcher Bail Bonds Company is out of business tonight because one of the proprietors is in jail. The district attorney's office says they suspected that most of the office furniture in the establishment was stolen property. So early this evening, they got a search warrant.
As a result of executing the warrants, we've recovered something in excess of $10,000 worth of stolen office furniture already, and Dennis Fletcher is in custody at this time on a charge of concealing stolen property.
We can carry it up that way. Let's go up with it.
If convicted, Fletcher could be sentenced to 10 years. The stiff penalty is possible because of a previous conviction for armed robbery. Oklahoma law prohibits a former felon from getting a bonding license, so Macy says the license is in Fletcher's wife's name. A member of the district attorney's office who does not want to be identified says that the formal charge against Fletcher will be concealing stolen property. However, he says Fletcher has long been suspected of extensive criminal activity in the past, and his arrest should make a major dent in Oklahoma County crime. Ted Brown, Action 4 Downtown.
Blue Ribbon Downs in Sallisaw, Oklahoma is located 21 miles west of Fort Smith, Arkansas. The Heritage Place Futurity was the feature race of the day. The top 10 two-year-old quarter horses in the Southwest were entered in this race.
The horses are coming on the track for the third race. This is the Heritage Place Futurity Finals. The gross purse, $424,000.
Up between horses, Lecture Red Bull, Zoyer, in front, Newberry, outside, Horse, second outside, excessive power,
Jumbo Pacific was the winner. This two-year-old quarter horse is owned by Dan and Jolene Herschel of Canadian, Texas. The winner's share of the purse was $161,000. The race was the world's richest quarter horse allowance race. Supporters of Para Mutuel wagering were out in full force at the track.
We got to have it. We got too many horses. If something isn't done for an outlet for the horses, supply and demand, it's going to get overburdened just like a lot of other things.
The people in the state of Oklahoma don't understand horse racing altogether. And consequently, it's our job to educate them, to show them what it is, the kind of people are in it, and that it is a good sport, enjoyable sport. It's good for all ages.
This race was the beginning of the biggest weekend ever for the quarter horse industry in Oklahoma. Almost $10 million will change hands at the Heritage Place sale this weekend in Oklahoma City. Ben McCain, Action 4, at Blue Ribbon Downs in Sallisaw, Oklahoma.
The OU Roughnecks is a male pep club formed in 1915. They are most visible following a touchdown at Owen Stadium, when they run the Sooner schooner onto the field and fire their cannon. But late last month, the university administration suspended the club following allegations that club pledges had been hazed. Today at Hester Hall, an administrative committee met behind closed doors to review the suspension. There are a number of options open to the committee. They can uphold the suspension with or without alterations, or they can drop the suspension entirely. The decision may not come until late tonight. Even if the committee upheld the suspension unchanged, the Roughnecks could apply for reorganization. They would have to make certain changes in their charter, and they'd have to make assurances that existing problems would be corrected. But the Roughnecks, or at least their spirit, is popular at OU games. Even while suspended, they were permitted to drive the schooner at the Colorado game. And a lot of people believe that in one form or another, the Roughnecks will continue to exist. Charles Schnetzer, Action 4 at Oklahoma University.
Solar energy is a very desirable method of obtaining energy. Unfortunately, it's not very efficient today, and it may not be efficient for 50 or 60 years. So we have to ask, what kind of a power base are we going to develop for our children and their children? And it's unlikely that very much of it, more than even 10 or 15%, can possibly be obtained from solar energy. So we'll have to obtain the energy from somewhere else. My guess is that it'll come from the cheaper sources, from coal and from nuclear.
Sonny Hays' legal problems began back in 1977 when he was convicted of killing Everett Vance during a robbery of this Muskogee shoe shop. After 4 years on Oklahoma's death row, Hays told his court-appointed attorney to drop his death sentence appeal. The State Court of Criminal Appeals set a September 14th death date for Hays, but attorneys for Sonny's mother, Mrs. Leo Hays, stepped in. They asked the State Appeals Court to postpone Hays' execution. The attorneys argued that Thomas Hays was not competent to drop his death sentence appeal. The court disagreed, paving the path for the execution. Mrs. Hays' attorneys then took her plea to federal court. They produced 2 medical experts who testified that there was some doubt about Sonny Hays' competency. Citing a 3-year-old diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia, the doctors agreed Hays needs extensive psychiatric evaluation. However, the state countered with 4 prison medical experts who had pronounced Hays competent when they interviewed him back in July. When Federal District Court Judge Luther Bohannon ruled Hays mentally competent, Mrs. Hays appealed the verdict to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals in Denver. The High Court ordered a new mental competency hearing for Hays and put his death date on an indefinite hold. Tomorrow, Judge Bohannon will decide who will evaluate Sonny Hays and where that evaluation will take place. The judge will also ask Hays once again if he wants to pursue his death sentence appeal. Scott Wallace, Action 4.
Bringing them over, and if they have a permit to work,
23, 24.
They're governed by the same. Well, they have. They estimated about 250 by lunch.
There are a lot of them leaving the state. A lot of them have already gone and are filing out of state. They're always a very pleasant group of people. Some of them are a little bit bitter at being laid off. A lot of them are going back home, and all of them are sure that they're going to go back to work within a few months.
Members of the committee spent most of the afternoon making their final recommendations, and those proposals would then go to Governor Nye. A lot of the reforms were suggested for the office of county commissioner. Committee members thought that the duties of the commissioner should be changed, so commissioners wouldn't have so much control over county money. But there were other recommendations too, like creating new county offices and abolishing others.
Last Wednesday, the Choctaw City Council filed suit against John Ains to have him remove all wild and dangerous animals from the city. Now, a week later, an out-of-court settlement has been reached.
The city agreed to drop all charges if we removed all felines from the property, all grown cats in cages, and agreed not to bring any more back. And if we also agreed, we have 2 cases pending in county court, district court, on this same type of thing that happened last January. And if we agreed to drop the appeal and not fight them over that, and agreed to get rid of the cats, they dropped all charges and we don't have to pay any fines or anything like that.
I would hope that the resolution and the settlement will be a binding settlement. The city anticipates it to be that way, and we hope the Ains anticipate it to be that way.
A problem in interpreting what the settlement says may send both sides back to court. Ains believes the city has only requested the removal of the large felines. Police Chief Wetzel says all cats, large or small, must go. Jerry Sellers, Action 4.
Cancer research has come a long way, but has a long way to go. Oklahoma is also in the race of finding ways to combat cancer. Now 40 to 50% of all cancer victims have a good chance of beating the disease, largely thanks to research and technology. But those in the medical field say that isn't good enough, not until cancer can be wiped out altogether. And that's the opinion of Dr. Robert Good, who will become head of the cancer research program at the Oklahoma Medical Research Foundation. He talked about why he chose Oklahoma and what will be his main focus.
And the Oklahoma Medical Research Foundation is offering a real challenge to me and my colleagues, an opportunity to work with outstanding scientists, and at this point in my life it seems the best thing for me to do. I'm going to start in working very intensively on something I initiated back in 1968, and that is bone marrow transplantation, to approach some of the problems of leukemia.
Dr. Good has a special interest in cancer research. His father died of cancer when he was a young man. Now that Dr. Good has teamed up with the Oklahoma Medical Research Foundation, we can expect major strides toward wiping out this deadly killer. Ed Stewart, Action 4 at the Oklahoma Medical Research Foundation.
Is that the guy?
That's him.
Hey, how you doing? Fine.
Meet Cheetah, a 1-year-old spotted leopard. Her owner, Bill Dennis, and his wife, Debbie, have been Cheetah's dad and mom, so to speak, since she was 3 days old. The cat is declawed and lives on a farm. Today, she's at her second home in Oklahoma City.
Let's go. Let's go.
The Dennises fear that trips to the city may be outlawed soon. They've been told by city councilmen, policemen, and wildlife authorities that legislation is in the works at City Hall. Legislation that may prohibit the ownership of exotic animals.
Come here.
To fight back, the Dennises have organized the Special People for Exotic Animal Club.
I want Speak to be involved in direct communication and direct involvement with any planning of any upcoming city ordinances or any legislation which would affect us.
Most people think an animal like this is going to be dangerous. Why should you be allowed to have a big cat like this in your home?
I grew up with Tarzan movies too, and I was under the opinion that those animals were vicious and wild. And we are talking about a different kind of cat when we talk about the difference between a wild cat in its native natural state and a domesticated animal. And we have chosen, as pet owners again, to take these animals into our homes and make them family members so that they're not a jungle fantasy any longer, like my Tarzan syndrome, but they become a friend to me.
More than 100 pet owners have expressed an interest in the club. If the city council announces any exotic animal legislation, the Dennises say the club will fly in celebrity animal lovers like Doris Day, Mary Tyler Moore, and Amanda Blake for support. Larry Otis, Action 4.
One room of Oklahoma City Police Headquarters is set aside for one reason: tracking down two 13-year-old girls. 10 officers are working full-time trying to find Charlotte Kinsey and Cinda Pallett. They've tracked dozens of leads, all to a dead end, but they're not giving up because there are still hundreds of leads that have to be checked. Most of them come from the public, and investigators welcome their help.
We always welcome any type of input that we can get from the public on any case that we're working on, and especially a case like this, because it helps us being able to trace movements of our victims and our suspects or any of our witnesses.
It's been 2 months since the state fair packed up and the investigation began. But Sergeant James says he's not setting a time limit for finding the girls. He says as long as they have leads to run down, the investigation will continue. Ted Brown, Action 4 from the State Fairgrounds.
Nelda Bridges bought one of the ever-popular portable signs you see all around Oklahoma City to advertise her business with. But now city officials are telling her she has until Monday to get rid of it or face a fine of $35 a day until she does. Mrs. Bridges checked with the city before she bought the sign and got the go-ahead.
They told me that no permit was needed. I did call City Hall before I had the sign installed, and they told me that go ahead, there wouldn't be any problem, that there wasn't any permit to buy. I couldn't buy a permit for this, and I said, well, is it legal? He said, well, everybody's got them, there'll probably be no problem.
For some answers, we went to the city's Code Enforcement Department to find out what is the law concerning portable signs and how is the law being enforced.
And the law actually is that nothing, no signs, temporary or otherwise, can be placed within the right-of-way or within the sight triangles of intersections. A legal permit cannot be issued on any type of a portable sign.
How does that make you feel?
Mad as hell. Mad as hell. This has been a law I found out since years ago. They've never were legal. Why has the city picked now to enforce the law after everybody has their money invested? Why not, why are they allowing to sell them out here?
So from now on, any business owner or anyone else who's thinking about buying or renting a portable sign, remember, they are illegal in Oklahoma City. But if you do purchase any sign of any kind, remember to get the city permit that comes along with this sign. It also stands to reason if this portable sign is illegal, then it would also stand to reason this sign here, also being portable, is illegal. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in Northeast Oklahoma City.
This week, the best of the best is being shown at the State Fairgrounds Arena. You can go anywhere in the world at any time, and you won't find a more expensive and exquisite group of horses. The value of the horses competing this year totals well over $40 million. A record 1,526 American quarter horses are entered, 40 of which are former champions. Their owners came to compete for a coveted World Championship trophy.
Next horse to go now will be number 311.
Returning champions and new entries alike are aware of the tough competition they're facing here. These horses represent the top performers of the 1981 show season. There's over $200,000 in prize money and other honors, the top of which is the Super Horse Award, presented to the most versatile quarter horse in the show. The World Championship Quarter Horse Show will continue through Saturday, ending with the finals competition and the crowning of the Super Horse. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
Neighbor for Neighbor maintains an emergency food bank that's getting more use than ever before. Volunteers here say they're amazed at the number of people who come in after having not eaten for days. Cans of soup become a feast. But people usually don't ask for food until they have to, the volunteers say. They actually receive hundreds of phone calls a day.
They don't come to us for food until they realize that they really, I think that's the one thing you can't buy on credit. I mean, you can owe for your utilities, you can owe the landlord, but you can't generally owe the grocery store person anymore. You get about 200 families a month. These would be different families each month that come to us for food. And there are other groups like us that also help with food. So there's a lot of families that will be asking for food each month in Oklahoma City. I would say easily 800 from the agencies that I know of, 800 to 1,000 families a month.
Neighbor for Neighbor also provides used furniture to families. This young man said it had been 6 months since he and his pregnant wife had even had a bed to sleep on. In addition, people come to Neighbor for Neighbor when they're looking for clothes for their children, coats for the winter, the bare necessities that most people take for granted.
Okay, Mrs. Thomas, I'll check with OG&E on this, and then
The organization
I'll,
also works as a
call you
clearinghouse
back
for
when
any
I
number of
find out the
problems that plague
circumstances,
folks who are having a
okay?
tough time making it from day to day, for whatever the reason.
What is it, Misty? Misty wants to see you boys.
No, she's dirty.
She can't help it, honey. She's been through a lot, too.
I'm Sherry Sellers. This is all that's left of the electric blanket that's thought to have caused last night's fire. It brings up the question, are electric blankets safe?
I don't think people really need to worry about the safety of their electric blankets because it's a rarity for something like this to happen. As potential fire sources, being a heat source themselves, we have very, very few problems. They're manufactured in such a way because they are going to be carrying electrical current and laying on top of people. They're manufactured to be safe.
Sandy Nix disagrees. She can't erase the memory of the roar and opening her eyes to see her daughter sleeping in a bed of flames. Fire officials have told the mother the supposedly safety-inspected blanket was the cause of the Nix's fire, and Sandy says someone must warn others.
I'm going to see what I can't do about filing suit against the company that sold the blanket. If I find for sure, because I don't want anybody else to go through what I went through this morning and almost lose my baby over it. I don't want anybody to ever have to go through what I went through because of an electric blanket.
Sherry Sellers, Action 4.